With the Kobalt 24V trim router, can you throw away the cord? We'll find out in just a moment. I'm Tim Johnson. You're watching Shop Tool Reviews. This is the Kobalt model number KR124B-03. This is their 24V brushless compact router. So can you really throw away the cord on your router? Or do you even need this tool? Is it for just the woodworker? We don't think so. We think it can work in just about any shop that uses wood, especially on those jobs where you may just be building jigs or may be wanting to just soften up the edges on something. This is going to be a great tool for that, and we'll get to that in just a moment. Let's take a closer look at the features on this tool, then we'll use it on some different pieces of wood, and then we'll come back and give you our opinion. This is the Kobalt 24V brushless compact router or compact trim router. So you get it as you see it here with the tool itself, no battery. You get a dust extraction guard here, or that actually goes on there to extract some of the dust. You get a wrench here, 2 thumb screws, actually 3 because one's on here already, and then basically a straight edge tool that hooks up to the router. We'll show you that in just one moment. A couple of features on the router itself. Number one, you have a speed dial here, so you can set your max speed, if you will. So once the battery's in, you turn it on. You can turn your desired speed on. It's going to lock there and stay there. As far as and by the way, there's also incremental steps in between. They do have detents in there, so you get half steps. So 5.5, 5, 4.5, and so forth. Simple on and off switch right here, which I like to see. So turn it on, it's going to be on. Turn it off, it's going to be off. Pretty self-explanatory, huh? Anyway, as far as adjustment on this tool, pretty easy as well. It has a rack and pinion system. In other words, you have a geared mechanism there with, you see the little slots there built into the housing, and so you can easily adjust this up and down and then lock that into place where you need it. There are markings here on the base of the tool where you can look at how far you're moving it or what your setting needs to be, what have you. And you can use the top of the housing as a mark, or the bottom of the housing if you're going that low. Just some markings to, again, show you where you're at, as well as how far maybe you want to move as well. Let's go ahead and slide this base off of here. So that's easy, just to open that clamp, slide the base all the way off, and it's easily going to come off. By the way, it's easy to put back on and index as well, and I'll talk about that in a moment also. So you'll see right here, we have 2 LED lights. I'll show you how bright they are in a moment. They do very well, especially with the clear base. But anyway, so you get 2 LEDs to make sure that you can kind of see where you're going, especially when you've got that plunge bit in there, something like that. You can actually, see where you're going, see what's happening. You also have a built-in spindle lock here. So you can see there's basically a hole all the way through the shaft. And with that hole, you can line up the spindle lock here, which, by the way, you can see you have to have the base off to be able to get to this nut, and then use your wrench here to loosen up the collet, which, by the way, this is a safety collet. What do I mean by that? Now, if you're in woodworking and you're used to routing tools or routers, then you probably understand how this works. However, if you're used to using one of these tools right here, typically those won't have a safety router. You loosen them up, you pull your bit out, no problem. Now let me show you how these work. Again, bear with me if you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I'll put a bit in here. By the way, I don't have a battery in here, so we don't have anything to worry about. And you see it's loose right now. Still move it up and down. And so I'll go ahead and tighten this down. Get it good and snug. And now that's locked into place. So I use this a little bit, and then I want to change it out. Maybe I want to put a plunge bit in there. So lock out my spindle. Loosen up the collet nut. So now the collet nut is loose. I cannot move that bit. Now, I could take and whack it with a hammer. That's not going to help. Don't do that. I could try to pry it out. That's not going to work either. That's not how this works. So, even though this nut is nice and loose, what we have to do, again, push my spindle lock in and get that loosened up and up to where it kind of tightens up again. And then we're just going to break it free just a little bit further, and you see that bit instantly just kind of drops out of the way. So That's a safety collet. I'm calling it a safety collet. I think there's another name for it. But anyway, that's what it's built for. So if it loosens up, it's not going to let that bit go flying at 35,000 RPMs or whatever this is turning. So understand that don't pry that out of the way just because you loosen the collet nut once and it doesn't fall out or come out. So anyway, easy to use the spindle lock, and then use your single wrench so you don't have to have 2 wrenches. And once we have a bit in there, now we can line this back up. Now I talked about how easy this was to line up because basically you have your notches here in the base, and we have our pinion gear there. So easily line that up and slide that into place. So a lot of times you're looking around and saying, well, where does what ride whatsoever? But anyway, so very easy to find that, line that up, and slide it into place. Now let's talk about a couple of these additional features we have here. We have dust extraction. And so we see we have a little clear plastic pin right here, and we have a hole on this side. And you can find this smooth dowel hole right here. And by the way, I'm sure you can match up your shapes as well. And then you have the small thumb screw right here. Line those up. And now you've got your dust extraction. And then this long one here, I have no idea why this is so long, but we can go ahead and put this one in here. It does not touch the spindle, by the way. Feels like it's long enough to. And then we've got this tool, and basically it just slides in. Sorry. Slides in right there. Now we can lock that down. So now once that's locked into place, we can use that for our straight edge, whether we're running a plunger bit or something like that, to keep that straight without having to put a board up or anything else. Take that off now, I can just loosen my thumb screw, slide that out of place, and leave my thumb screw in there. And that's what I'll do. Same way with this, the dust extraction port. I can easily take that off, move that out of the way. And there we go. Now let's look at size and weight of this. On the handle here, which is pretty typical when you're dealing with cordless trim routers, it's almost 3 inches wide. Again, I haven't seen them much smaller or much bigger when it comes to these cordless units. And then as far as height goes, you can look at all the way in. You're at about 7 inches, 7¼ inches, and then all the way out, you're greater than 8 inches. But again, that's just really going to depend on what you're wanting to route. And very rarely are you in a place where it's kind of a tight area and you can't get to, especially with a cordless trim router. That's about as small as you can get. Now, as far as the base goes, you're looking at about 3½ inches on the base. And then you have a straight edge on the base as well, which I like to see that. Again, it gives you just another opportunity to make a straight run if you need to, riding up against the side of a board or some type of fence that you set up. Let's look at the weight on this tool, and we'll weigh it with a 2 amp hour battery. So with a 2 amp hour battery, you're looking at 4 pounds 3 ounces. So a little over 4 pounds for the whole tool. Not bad, again, for the work you're going to be doing versus one of the larger routers that are typically used. That's going to be light. Let's go use this on some different pieces of wood and see what we think. Okay, we're going to use this on some different species of wood, and the first thing I'm going to do is to actually set my depth here. So to do so, I'm going to loosen this lever. Now if I loosen it, this thing's pretty loose in here. In other words, I can set it manually, but even if I run it with my thumb to actually set that, there's a little bit of play in here. Now let me show you how to circumvent that. If you'll take this lever here, the clamp, and just kind of give it a little bit of tension, then it will actually stay into place as you set that depth. So I've just got barely any tension with my thumb on it, and then I can set that depth where I want to, where I can get the base right level with that round over bit. And so I'm just going to soften the edges here on this pine board. I know that's in you know, easy piece of soft wood, if you will, but we'll do that, then we'll hit some hardwood, then we'll do some plunging as well. So let's get started here. I'm going to run this on about speed 3 as well. Now you'll see that dual LED that I was talking about. It lights up that base, and you see it right here. And you can easily see inside your base. So if you have this index line here, if you're wanting to line that up with something, you can easily see that with those dual LEDs, and you can see the bit at work and everything else. Now I just did a simple round over. I'm a little bit high. I want to lower that just a little bit. I want to get a little bit deeper. So again, put a little tension on it, and there we go. Turn up the speed. Does that nice and easy, which I totally expected it to. Just a simple round over on a piece of pine here. Let me actually go to a larger round over. And again, as I mentioned, I'm going to loosen that twice, and then that thing's just going to come right out, no problem whatsoever. And now I'm locked in good and tight. And just line up my gear with the slots there. Okay, I'm going to make this one a little proud on purpose, or a little deep, where we can actually see that groove cutting the top. Still, as far as power goes, no problem whatsoever to eat right through there. And you see we left a little lip there. We could sand that out, or maybe we want to see that as decorative, whatever. Or I could, again, drop my base and bring that bit in a little bit and make that disappear. Let's go to a harder piece of wood, see how we do. So now we've got a piece of oak in here. And again, got a pretty large round over bit here. And let's see how we do. Again, we're on speed 6. No problem whatsoever. Making a really nice edge right there. Again, as far as power goes, for this little cordless trim router, it's great to not be tripping over cords or having a cord over your shoulder or anything like that. Now we are making a big mess. Let's put on our dust extraction adapter, hook up some dust extraction, and see how much we can pull away from it. I'm not expecting a lot, because the idea of a round over, we've got this whole side exposed. So it's not like you're going to be able to catch a lot of that dust, but maybe we can catch some of it. By the way, I think this port is like 1 3/8 or 36 millimeters, something like that, whatever that standard is. So it fits some, but not all. Hook up our extraction. As I mentioned, even with the dust extraction on a round over bit like this, you just got so much exposed to the blade. You're not going to capture a lot of that. And I'm sure we're capturing some of it, but we'll probably see more captured when we use more of a plunge bit and actually put a groove in this wood. So let's do that. Just going to use a 1/4 inch plunge bit. Now it's locked into place. And let's take out about a 1/4 inch on our first pass. Now I'm also going to put on our fence here. Okay, now that I've got my fence on, we already have the dust extraction on here. And again, we've got our bit set about a 1/4 inch depth, I would say. Let's run this first with no dust extraction, and then we'll run it with some dust extraction. And by the way, when we're plunging in the wood, we don't want to come in this way. We don't want to come in this way and pull this way. We want to come in this way and pull this way. So a couple of things are happening here. Number one, I'm definitely getting coated in man glitter here, as well as our groove here is getting filled with dust. By the way, that can catch fire sometimes. This can catch fire, that sawdust in this groove. It can heat up hot enough to actually catch fire. I've seen it happen, done it before. Let's get rid of some of this dust. Now let's run that same type of groove a little further over, and we'll hook up our dust extraction. Now that's where dust extraction really works. Kept us very clean, don't have near as much dust blowing around, as well as it kept our groove clean as well. You can see there's literally no residual left in that groove, where before it was just crammed full. So one more time, we're going to do a short section with no dust extraction. So you see how much residual we have left in here. That can all cause problems, as well as just a mess to deal with. Now let's run the next one. So you can see the difference there. Dust extraction, no dust extraction. Nice, cleaner cut, and a lot of times you will get a cleaner cut because you don't have all this mess, because it'll get packed tighter and tighter as you work that, especially if you're making deeper cuts. To be a compact router, especially a cordless compact router, we think it does very well. As far as power goes, it has plenty of power to do what a trim router should do. Soften up those edges, do some plunge cuts, make some small cuts, make some didos, what have you. We think it does very well at that. Now, as far as the micro adjustment on it, I think that's where it may suffer just a little. But as I mentioned, as long as you put a little pressure, on, or put a little tension on that clamp as you're making that micro adjustment, you can do it and set that depth where you need it. We love the dual LED lights on it. Gives it plenty of light at the base where you can see it kind of inside your cut, if you will, as well as leading your cut. Now, dust extraction. You're never going to get 100% dust extraction when you're doing like a round over. Because as I mentioned earlier in the video as we were using it, you've got half the tool that's just open to the environment. Even though your suction's up here, half the cutting tool, and really almost 100% of it, is just open. It's not going to suck all that up when you've got a tool turning 30+ thousand RPMs that's slinging that dust and fragments elsewhere. So again, when you're doing that round over, unless you've got a table that's actually evacuating that, the dust extraction is not going to do a whole lot. That's not a positive or negative to Kobalt in general. That's pretty much any trim router. Now when you saw us do the plunge cut, that's where dust extraction is key. You saw it kept our cut clean, it kept the trough clean, we're not going to overheat, we're not going to cause any problems, and we're going to keep that dust from flying everywhere. So I highly recommend you using the dust extraction port when you're doing those plunge cuts and things where you're actually burying the tool in the wood so you can get that dust out of there and you're not breathing it and it's not slinging it all over you. Now as far as price on this tool, you get the tool, the fence, as well as the dust extraction port and the wrench. So everything you see here except these batteries and chargers is $119 for the tool. Now you'll probably see these go on sale and be like $109, maybe even $99 from time to time. And when you look at a battery kit like this one here, where you can get a 2 amp hour and a 4 amp hour and the charger, typically runs about $119, $129 as well. Sometimes you'll see those go on sale. So if you're buying all this at once, you're in this thing for $250, something like that. That's pretty steep for a cordless trim router. Now, if you already have the Kobalt batteries and chargers and you just need the tool, that's a pretty cheap price for a trim router. And we think it's very handy. Again, not having to sling a cord over your shoulder or having it drag around or worried about which way you're going as to which way the cord is. That comes in very, very handy and pretty much pays for itself and just not having the nonsense to deal with that cord. So it really depends on what you're wanting to do. If you're wanting to buy into the Kobalt platform, that $250 just may be an investment for you, and then you can continue to expand on that platform because Kobalt continues to release new brushless 24-volt tools all the time. Check it out for yourself. You can get them at Lowe's. Again, it's $119 for the tool only, and model number is the KR124B-03, the 24-volt brushless compact router. Hey, if you'll keep track of us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, we'll promise you we'll keep you busy at looking at tools. Also, if you would hit that like and subscribe button on this video, but only if you like this video. If you hated our video, by all means, give us a thumbs down. But would you let us know in the comments why? Have a great day and keep smiling.